Okay, so now what we're going to do, I had a discussion with Mr. LaRouche about the chorus and about what we're doing here, and he had a few things to say. One thing that he thought was really crucial is that is the question of solfege, that people learn solfege, which means being able to read music. It's just part of literacy. So there's a few more aspects to this that I wanted to review today, and then what we're going to take up. LaRouche has referenced many, many times the question of Furtwangler, the conductor, and his insight, his brilliant insight into the principles of classical composition. And in particular, LaRouche has been very taken with Furtwangler's performance of the Ninth Symphony of Schubert. So we are going to listen to just the first movement of that. We're going to listen to it conducted by someone else first, and then by him. But before we get there, there's just a couple things that I thought we should review, because I want you to be prepared for when we listen to it. So first of all, let's have the first slide. Go to the no.
Oh, here?
That's it. Yeah, that's the whole PowerPoint, everything's there, so you should just open it up and set it for slideshow.
And you said this is going to be the Ninth Symphony of Schubert that you'll be.
That is, don't close it. No, it's not responding. Yeah. Anyway, what I'm going to show you, the first slide talks about the question of register shift. Does anyone have an idea, if you're talking about your voice, what do you mean by register shift? Well, one way of thinking about it, how many people have driven a stick shift?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so you know, if you put the car in first gear and you try to go 40 miles an hour, what happens, right? Now, it's possible to do something like that with the human singing voice. Here we go. Can you set it to slideshow now? It's up there. See slideshow, right up there.
Oh, yeah.
Not ready yet. It'll be ready. There we go. And then say start with from the beginning. Right there. Okay. All right. So this may be a little bit hard to see all these notes. People remember we did some of this last week. What this depicts, the actual issue of whether someone is a, can you get rid of that? Soprano.
Uh-oh. Oh.
There it gets. See, this is very, very powerful. This is secret knowledge. You know this. We're going to save civilization. Okay. The difference between, you see these types of voice, soprano, alto, contralto, tenor, baritone, bass. So it's called the 6 species of the human singing voice. And what actually defines the voice is not just the range per se. Like people think if you're a woman and you can sing really high, you must be a soprano. If you can only sing low, then you're probably an alto. If a man can only sing low, he's a bass, and if he sings higher, he's a tenor. There is some truth to that, but the actual way to know for sure is the question of where the voice shifts. And the voice has a shift, which is not that different than if you're driving your car and you go over a certain limit and you can, it's not fixed. For example, you see A to F. I'm gonna rewrite this. I hope you can see it here. I'm just gonna show you, and maybe we have some other sopranos or tenors who want to demonstrate. Because it's just, you're born this way, and it doesn't matter if you know how to sing or not. Okay. So, alright, we're gonna just do these notes. People remember what this is? Yeah, do, re, mi, fa.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, sol,
C major scale.
la, yes, si, do. Okay. Now, what they're saying is there's a shift here between the F natural and the F sharp. So here, do, re, mi, fa, sol. So what they're saying is there's a break here in the voice. So what does that sound like? So, do, mi. So if I sang, don't, because, if I sang, because I happen to be a soprano, if I use a kind of a chest voice, speaking voice, do, re, mi, fa, sol, sol, la. In other words, I can't keep singing in this voice. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. It's really hard. But if I go, do, re, mi, fa, and then sol, la, si, do, right, you change where your voice is placed. Okay, and for tenors, there's another one. You see the tenor between the B and the C? So if we, what's easier to see, if I put it down here, if I write over there?
Oh, that's good.
Fine.
Here, you can see it here?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna put our bass clef here, which we haven't worked on. Let me just have, the women in the audience. Use an E, because I find it easier to place. We have two women. Just sing me, 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 and try not to shift. Try to keep kind of yelling and see what happens. Try it. Me, 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 me. It's, right?
Kind of catches,
Yeah,
I get a catch.
yeah. Now what if you say me, me, and then you switch to moo when you get to that note? Try it. Me, 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 moo, right? So,
That's better.
yeah. Now for tenors, you get to go all the way. Here's do. Remember, what kind of clef is this one?
The bass clef.
Bass, and what is it? F. It's an F clef, otherwise known as an F clef. Why is it called an F clef?
Because it starts on
It
F.
tells you where F is.
Yeah.
The two dots tell you where the note F is. So,
Okay.
fa, mi, re, do. We can count down to our do. Do, re. And this is gonna be very important when we get a little bit farther to the tuning question. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. Okay, so what do they say? They say we have a shift between B and C, between C and do. So, do we have a tenor, Art? Do you like to demonstrate?
Yeah, we.
Try and not shift first. So listen to Art sing it. Try not to shift and go as high as you can.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do, re, mi.
So he push it. He can push it, but it's not so pretty. Now, try it, and when you get up there, try and shift. For the tenor, it's right here. Okay.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do.
Keep going.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol.
Then he has another shift, which is the shift between fa and sol, F and F sharp, up here. Okay, so this is not now, my piano is also tuned at C equals 256 or A at about 430, the Verdi tuning. So that means that these register shifts are the shifts that are associated with this tuning. If you change the tuning, it's like changing the baseline of the speed that you're going. It's going to change where these shifts occur. And it can be extremely damaging because the composers learned the singing voice this way with these shifts. And they wrote, and there's all kinds of examples, and we'll do more of this, but the compositions, the poetry were based on this, and you can jam it. In other words, Art and I and Jessica, and you're able to force your voice just like you can maybe go 30 miles an hour in first gear. Maybe you could do it. It's not really good for your car. It's not really good for your voice to do this. And what happens is people do damage to their voice, and the voice also doesn't resonate. So similarly, if you are a different voice type, like a bass, here you see the shift is between sol, a G and an A flat, or sol and la, so, and then there's gonna be a shift. And often to get used to this, it's very helpful to sing more quietly when you get to the shift, just so you can practice getting out of there, like we switched to sing ooh instead of E on those notes. So does that make sense? People have kind of an idea what I'm saying about shift now, register shift? Okay. All right, good. So let's go to the next
I have a
one.
question.
Yeah.
What is the physical aspect to a shift? Like
You know,
literally.
it's where it resonates in part. So when you're singing low, me, e, it's a kind of a lower resonance. When you're singing, the resonance is going higher, and on the really, I went singing up there, the resonance, they use different parts of your sinus cavities, and it actually shifts where the sound comes from. Yeah, so you can, like, if sometimes they say you're dragging your chest up, if you're singing, and I'm putting my chest, you can feel a vibration in the wrong place. Yeah. Yeah, and it
Like
takes,
singing from your diaphragm instead of your throat.
well, that's the air.
That's the air.
Yeah, because all of that really
Part of
helps.
it.
If you don't have air, then you're
Yeah.
really in trouble, and you tend to squeeze. But at any rate, so this is known. In other words, any human being, and when we are born, every baby is a soprano. Every baby is a soprano. Yeah. Right. And you may notice babies can really project, like those voices, whoo, they'll cut through 5
Such
feet
a
of
little
lead
body.
walls, and yeah. 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 Anyway, so now let's go to the next. Slide. Just hit the, there we go. Okay. So now I want you to hear, and the way this is gonna work is A432, which should be about like that. We're gonna hear A432, so just click on that. Is that connected to the speakers?
Should be.
Are they turned on? A440 is the modern. Hear that?
Yeah.
It's a little higher. In Vienna and other places, they're, wait a minute, stop, just wait, I want people to be able to concentrate and listen. They play at about 448, which is almost 450. So listen to 432 again. Now listen to 450. Almost a half step. It's a
Yeah.
huge difference. So if you go back to what happens to your voice where these register shifts are, if you're going up this high, you are putting your voice in a whole other place. It's like driving your car in the wrong gear the whole time. And 440, play 432 and 440 again. Right, it's small, but it's enough, and no one does 440 hardly anymore. Almost everyone's at least at 442. This decision, Megan Beats goes through it, and the new EIR is going to have it. Verdi, the Italian composer, had a war in Italy that A should be no higher than 432, and he got into the Italian parliament, and he got the Italian Minister of War to issue a decree that A could be no higher than 432. It was the law of the land. Because there were different pitches various places, and a lot of people, I'm sorry to say, as a trombone player myself, a lot of people with brass instruments and brass bands wanted the higher pitch because they thought it was brighter. So they would arbitrarily raise the pitch, but there was no scientific reason for it. Yeah, Ron?
Would that make the strings sound kind of strange when they go that high?
Yes, and it creates all kinds of balance problems, because if you're trying to sing with an orchestra and you're trying to sing at this high screechy pitch, so your voice is a little bit compressed and narrow and the orchestra is very bright, then you can't even hear yourself in the orchestra. The balance gets completely out of whack. People have to really strain, you know, and imagine Wagner, who they always play at very high pitches, and he had these giant orchestras with like 9 trombones and 5 tubas, right? And if you see, the singers all have to weigh about 500 pounds, and then they blow out their voice after, you know, one opera is 6 hours long and it's over. They've destroyed themselves, which is one of the aspects. But anyway, yeah, right. Anyway, so now what we are going to do, you can go to the next slide. Yeah, actually, we're going to stop here for a second. We're going to stop here because we have to review something. So, I'll get rid of this. Everyone can see this okay here? You can? Okay. Very good. So can you turn that off, mute it or something? Do people remember, not everyone was here, but we did some work on rhythm. We just had I can get rid of this and put it back. I'll put it back in a minute. Okay, so we're gonna do, if I say that, what does that mean?
4 beats per measure?
Yes, 4 beats per measure, and a quarter note gets 1 beat, okay? 4, 4, okay, so, what is that note?
That's the whole note.
A whole note, is it a whole note?
It's 4
Yes, that's 4 beats, okay, very good. All right, and, what are these?
Half notes.
Half notes?
Quarter notes. No,
Yeah, those are halves.
Those are half.
2 beats, okay. Here's the quarters. We'll do 4 of them. Okay, so they each get a beat. And then, remember, we had this one with a dot. What does that mean? What does the dot mean?
That's like.
It is
a
3
half a
beats.
beat. You want
Correct, it's
one
3
and
beats.
three beats.
Which, why is it 3 beats? What does the dot do?
It
Correct,
is.
it adds 50%. It adds half of whatever note it's attached to. So this one is 3 beats, so we have to stick a quarter note here because we have to have 4 beats in our measure here. Just think, we could sell a record after these classes, we'll have a whole bunch of competitions. All right, and now we're gonna introduce a new one. Yeah, 8th notes. Why is it an 8th note?
Because it's half of a
It gets a
quarter.
half a beat, right? So how many 8th notes should be in a measure?
Eight.
8, okay? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put 4 8th notes and 2 quarter notes in our last measure. All right, and now what we're gonna do is we're gonna perform this. Okay, ready? So we're gonna say la, and we're gonna hold it for the values that we're supposed to hold it. All right, I'm gonna clap the time. So I'm gonna give you what they call 1 bar for nothing. So I'm gonna give you 4 beats, and then we're all gonna start. We're gonna see if we can perform this. You ready? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. La, 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 la. Oh, we all ended together.
Yeah.
All right, now you do it without me, because I can't tell while I'm doing it, okay? So I'm gonna count, and you do it. 1, 2, ready, go. La, 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 la. Yes, that is excellent, excellent. Okay, very good. Now, you remember this? So, what happens if I do this? That's a quarter note, right?
Yeah.
How much did I add to that quarter note?
Half.
Yeah, so it's like adding an 8th, right? So in other words, this could be written like this. By the way, those notes, if they're by themselves, they have a little, you can make them this way.
Right.
I'm sorry, this is really messy. All right, so it's the same thing. That's the same thing as that.
With a dot.
Yeah. Okay. So suppose I'm gonna change this thing. That's 1.5 beats, right? So to finish the bar, I have to put an extra 8th note in here. Now, anyone have any idea what that sounds like if we're going 1, 2, 3, 4?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Try this. I'm gonna do this measure. La, 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 la. La, 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 la. In other words, we'll change this measure to be this. Actually, it's easier to read if I space them the right way. So we're gonna do a whole bunch of those. Not a whole bunch. Okay, do you see that this still adds up to 4 beats? Because it's 1.5 plus a half, 1.5 plus a half. Oop, thank you. Dot, okay. And sometimes if you're worried that you're gonna be sloppy, instead of beating quarter notes, because we're doing blah, 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 you can beat the 8th notes. Instead of 4 beats in a measure, we could do 8, so this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, da, dee, da, dee, da, dee, da, dum. You see that? People follow that? So why don't we try this? We're gonna do it in 4 and see if we can, another way of thinking of how these things work is you think of dee, da, bum. It's like a rebound. Dum, bum, dee, dum, bum, bum, bum. All right?
Okay.
So let's start here and we're gonna do the whole thing. Now with our new rhythm, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. La, 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 la. Try it one more time, okay? All right. I'll do only 2 beats for free. 3, 4. La, 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 la. Yeah. Now that everyone has got that. Now. Well, let's first sing. Let's sing a nice Do major scale. Get ourselves warmed up here. I'll set it for the proper tuning. All right, so what we're gonna, so just sing it whatever voice type you want, whatever octave you want. Sing the Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, Do, and then we'll go back down, okay? Go. Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, Do, Si, La, Sol, La, Mi, Re, Do. Let me hear everyone sing the Do together. Do. Yeah, some people will try it again. Do. There we go. Now let's try and go a little bit low. It'll be low for us. Go down from there. Do, si, la, so. Just go down to so. Do, si, la, so. Now go back up. So, la, si, do. Good. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start Schubert's Ninth Symphony, which happens to be in Do major.
Oh.
Okay? So we're lucky, we're well prepared. And we're gonna sing the French horn part. These lines are too big, too far apart. We're gonna look at that in a second, but I'm gonna write it here first. And we're gonna sing it down 1 octave, but it's okay. I should get one of those.
One of those things.
Yeah,
that
they
has
have
to-
those things, you
Yeah.
draw 5 at once.
They have all of them.
Yeah,
They used to have it in chalk though,
Yeah.
right.
you know, when we used chalkboards back in the day.
Alright. Yeah. Actually, what we should have is a permanent board. When I was in school, they had a board, a chalkboard with white lines.
White lines,
Yeah, that
yeah.
were just there.
I remember that too.
That was at music school. Okay. So here we go. So we have our clef. What kind of clef is that?
The G clef,
G clef.
or the treble clef.
Right. And why is it called the G clef?
Because it shows where G is.
Yes. So the G is right here, this
And
line.
then the squiggle.
That's Sol. So now, so here we go. That's a Do. If that's a Do, what's that?
Right,
Great.
Okay. And what's this?
Lee.
Okay.
Far.
We're not going up.
Oh, we're not doing that, okay. Do, re, mi.
figured out that that's do, re, mi. We figured that out, okay. All right, what's this? Well, if this is sol, what's one note above sol? La, la, right? Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Okay. La. What's that?
C.
C. And then that?
Re.
Do, 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 okay.
Okay.
Okay, then this, anyone know what that is?
Fa.
Fa, okay, dot. Okay, what are those? That's right. Re, exactly, very good. And then what's that? One note above re?
Is
Mi.
Mi.
Yeah. Okay, we're just going up our scale. And then here, what is this? One note above fa?
Re.
Half.
No, do,
Sol.
re, mi, fa,
Sol.
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 Okay. Yeah, I did.
About a half, I think it's a half.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so sol, re, mi. Okay, sol, re, mi. Sorry, I have to do the solfege to know what they are. And then, let's see, I'll come back down here. Everyone can see it down here, right? Okay. So what did I say, re, mi? We don't have to go that far. We're almost to the end of the first part. And we're gonna sing it down an octave, as if we're tenors. You know what we can do? I don't know if you've seen, sometimes they do this. See that little 8 under there? An octave is 8 notes. That means that we're singing it an octave below what's written there. Okay? So, do, re, mi, do, re, mi, do. See, I told you what it was. Was do, re, mi, fa, sol, mi. That's how it ends, right?
No, no, you
What?
missed it. You're missing a measure. It's gotta go down to the do, to the la.
Oh, so what do I do? Oh, re, mi,
La.
la, si, do. Oh, there we go, that's right. That makes more sense. Sol, re, mi, do. Oh, yeah. Sol, re, mi, la. I just got that. Okay. So that's this. People remember that. La, si, do. And it goes re, mi, do, re, mi, do. Okay. So re. Alright, almost done. Ah. Okay. Here it is. We've done it. Alright. That's our masterpiece.
Oh, that's the beginning of Schubert's Eighth Symphony. Ninth Symphony.
Yes, that's what I said earlier, yes. I told you that, but I'm glad do. Then what's this?
Fa.
What comes one note after do?
Right.
Re.
Re. And what's one note after re?
Mi.
Me.
Okay, what's that?
Fa.
No.
So it's gone down.
Do, right? On that space, that's a do. And then what's that? One note above do?
Re.
Right.
Re. What's one note above
Mi.
re?
Me.
Mi. Okay, and
Now
this is
it's
do.
again.
Okay, good. So now, let's not do it on the pitches. Everyone should be able, even though my writing is not the neatest writing in the whole wide world. All of you know enough to be able to say the solfege on the rhythm. So we're not gonna worry about the tone. We're gonna worry about getting the rhythm right. So what I mean is we're gonna say do, re, mi, la, si, do. We're gonna say it. And I'm gonna tell you something. We'll do it a little slow because the tempo is that. Does anyone know what that means?
That means slow.
But what is the word? What does it mean?
Andante.
Dolores, what's andante?
I can't, what was that?
Andante. Translate.
I can't hear.
Andante.
What does andante mean?
Walking.
Going a little
Isn't
bit
it?
faster.
It means walking. So it's a relaxed tempo. It's not like a march, right? And it's not really, really slow. It's not
I'm
largo.
a musician.
Okay.
Just
You know the lyrics.
I know a little bit.
Okay, so andante is moving, but it's not really, really slow. So let's just try da, dee, da. We won't go too fast. We're gonna say our solfege in rhythm. Okay? 3, 4. Do, re, mi, la, si, do. Fa, re, mi, sol, re, mi, la, si, do, re, mi, do, re, mi, do. Right. Now, there's a very interesting thing that Schubert does here. Do you see anything similar between this measure and these two measures? This
Oh.
measure, the third from the end, this one, and these two.
Well,
Shh, Eugene, be quiet. There's something very interesting that he does.
Uses the.
It's the same notes, that's right, it's the same notes, but what about it? What about the rhythm?
You turn it around, right?
Well, it's not quite turned around, the rhythm's different. What's different about the rhythm?
Those dotted.
He uses a dot, right?
Dotted.
So the first time the dot's on a quarter note,
Yeah,
the next time it's on a half note.
yeah.
What would happen if I took this bar and I decided to do it twice as slow?
Oh,
How would it sound?
oh,
What?
you're bringing it down, slowing it down.
Exactly. What he did is he took this measure and then he rewrote it exactly twice as long. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So this note is 1.5 beats. This one is then
2.
3.
Three.
3. 3. 1.5 to 3. This one is a half a beat. How long is that? One whole beat, right? That note's a half note. How long is that?
A whole note.
Exactly.
one.
So what he did is he wants us to kind of get this, because he does it, and then he does the whole thing again twice as slow. Okay? Now, the other thing that he does is he has these accents on the beginning of these notes. That is an accent. And he has them, I've written in the
Yeah, except for the last two measures.
Except for the last two measures, interesting, okay. So, there's something about this that he also wants us to get. Anyway, but what I think we should do is now that we can do the rhythm perfectly, let's try and sing it, okay? So let me get the tune here. So instead of singing, if I sang it like it looks, and then I have to go after the sol. But we won't do that. We'll do it down. Do, so everyone can sing. Okay, so let's do it like 1, 2, 3, 4. Do, re, mi, fa, si, do. Fa, re, mi. Now high. Sol, re, mi, fa, si, do. Re, mi, do. Now twice as slow. Re, mi, do. Isn't that interesting? Let's try it again. Let's do it again. Okay? Ready? Go. Do, re, mi, la, si, do. Fa, re, mi, sol, re, mi, la, si, do. Re, mi, do. Re, mi, do. Okay, very good. Now we're prepared, and we're gonna listen to, the CD first. Oh, I have to give you my little gadget for the other one. And what we're gonna listen to is only the first movement of this, of Schubert. Oh, sorry, actually, can you show the score? I'm sorry. Just next, there we go. So this is what it looks like on the score, horns and C, and you see that, that's what we just did. Do, re, mi, la, si, do, fa, re, mi. Okay, that's how this whole thing begins. And just relax, the movement is 15 minutes. So we're gonna listen to it, and you listen. Okay, oh, too bad, okay. Anyway, so listen for that. I guess I can get rid of this then, right?
Wait,
You don't need the screen for that, do you?
no, this
Okay.
is your seat.
As they can see our beautiful thing up here. If you turn off the light, or mute the screen. something new. Can you show the slide? The second slide?
Added.
He did a little change because we had dee, if you remember, dee, dun, 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 very kind of even, but he was going dee, dun, dun, dee, da dum, dee, da dum. It's different. Next.
Next.
Yep. What did he do? Oh, see that?
Yeah, double dot.
2 dots, double dotted.
Goodness.
So, you're adding 50% and 50% again. Dee, da-dum. So it's a very little 1/16 of the measure, right? As opposed to, and it adds a certain kind of at the end. It's very dramatic, and it also makes a real point. I mean, everyone thinks if you're doing ta-da, how many people said that? Ta-da! Ta-da! So, now, I'm going to read you something about this, and then here are, and you can show something on the screen and play from here, right? Let me get it to which one I want. We're going to listen to Furtwangler. That was not Furtwangler. I had a crappy conductor do that one for you. Because, yeah, I wanted you to just get a little familiar with it. And I think you're going to notice right away in the beginning. But before we play it, and if you could put that first slide up on the screen while we listen to it, the first slide. I want to read you from Schumann. The very nice thing about Schumann is that he was a prolific writer besides being a brilliant composer. And he had a lot to say about Schubert.
You mean this one? Oops.
The one I said it to. What, the slide? Yeah, that one. If I can find it in here. And he particularly loved the symphony. And I'll tell you, Schubert, it was so criminal. Most of his symphonies like this, Schubert died in 1828. The symphony, I think, was completed in 1827, or maybe March of 1828. He died in November of 1828. The symphony wasn't published till 1840. Schubert never heard it performed in his lifetime. And Schumann had to fight to, anyways, get these things released and performed. So he talks about after Schubert died, he went to Vienna and went to see his brother, and on his brother's shelf he found all these manuscripts from Schubert that had never seen the light of day, that no one had done. He writes here, finally he allowed me to see those treasured compositions of Schubert's which he still possesses. The sight of this hoard of riches thrilled me with joy. Where to begin, where to end? Among other things, he drew my attention to the scores of several symphonies, many of which have never as yet been heard, but were shelved as too heavy and turgid. Who knows how long the symphony of which we are speaking, which is this one, might have lain buried in dust and darkness, had I not at once arranged with Ferdinand Schubert to send it to the directorate of the Gewandhaus concerts in Leipzig, or rather to the conducting artist himself, whose discerning glance never overlooks the most modest beauty, nor the outstanding dominant one. My hopes were fulfilled. The symphony went to Leipzig, was heard, understood, heard again, and joyously admired by almost everyone. I must say at once that he who is not yet acquainted with this symphony knows very little about Schubert. And when we consider all that he has given to art, this prayer may appear to many exaggerated, partly no doubt because composers have so often been advised, to their chagrin, that it is better for them after Beethoven to abstain from the symphonic form. So after Beethoven, forget it. Don't listen to any symphonies. That's what he said. It is true that of late we have had but few orchestral works of consequence. And he says that's generally true. The things after Beethoven have been pretty crappy. But those few have interested us rather as illustrations of their composer's progress than for their art. All right. The hope I had always entertained, and many no doubt with me, that Schubert, who had shown himself in his older compositions, Schubert died at the age of 33. Okay, firm in form, rich in imagination, and versatile, would also turn to the symphony and find a mode of treatment certain to impress the public, is here realized in the most glorious manner. Assuredly, he never proposed to continue Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, but an indefatigable artist, he continually drew from his own creative resources symphony after symphony. Now I'm going to skip to just say this one little thing. He said, on hearing Schubert's symphony and its bright, flowery, romantic life, the city crystallizes before me, and I realize such works could be born in these very surroundings. I shall not attempt to give the symphony its proper foil. Different ages select different sources for their texts and pictures. Whereas the youth, this is delightful, whereas the youth of 18 hears a world event in a musical work, the adult only perceives a national event. The musician himself, however, probably never thought of either, but simply gave the best music that he happened to feel within him at that moment. But everyone must acknowledge that the outer world, sparkling today, gloomy tomorrow, often deeply stirs the feeling of the poet or the musician. And all must recognize, while listening to this symphony, that it reveals to us something more than mere beautiful song, mere joy and sorrow, such as music has ever expressed in 100 ways, leading us into regions which to our best recollection we had never heard before. To understand this, one has but to hear this symphony. Here we find, besides the most masterly technicalities of musical composition, life in every vein, coloring down to the finest gradation, meaning everywhere, sharp expression and detail, and in a whole, a suffusing romanticism, which is not a word we would use today, but anyway, such as other works by Franz Schubert have made known to us. And then the heavenly length of the symphony, like that of a thick novel in 4 volumes, perhaps by Jean-Paul, who was also never able to reach a conclusion, and for the best reason to permit the reader to think it out for himself. How this refreshes this feeling of abundance, so contrary to one's experience with others, when one always dreads to be disillusioned at the end, and is often saddened through disappointment. It would be incomprehensible whence Schubert had all at once acquired this sparkling, easy mastery in the handling of the orchestra. Did we not know that this symphony had been preceded by 6 others, and that it was written in the stage of virile power? On the score is the date March 1828, and he died in November that year. We must grant that he possessed an extraordinary talent in attaining to such idiomatic treatment of the single instruments. And you can listen when you hear this one, the instruments are being used as human voices. He said they often seem to converse like human voices and choruses, although he scarcely heard any of his own instrumental works performed during his lifetime. So, just extraordinary. So now what we're going to hear is Furtwangler. So you've heard one performance. We're going to hear the exact same movement, and just listen, and I think you're going to hear it in a very different way. Yes, Eugene.
This whole thing, and everything that he played on the instrument there, it sounded to me like it was in D major, not C.
Oh.
Sounded like D major.
Well, the tuning of these recordings might be high. That one we just heard was, I don't want to say what I thought of it. You have to figure it out yourself, so I'm not going to say. But I want you to hear this one, and hear, because I think what you're going to hear is a certain quality of incredible tension which he brings to it, which a directionality. So we're just gonna listen to.
So one we just heard with Furtwangler, or
No.
we're going to hear?
We're going to hear.
Furtwangler, okay.
Yeah, we're going to hear, okay, so. Yeah. between the two? Any thoughts? Did you notice the difference?
I just thought it was like cleaner.
Yeah, the
Cleaner?
second one.
Yeah, if that's a word to use.
Yeah, what do you mean by it?
It was more precise, it was sharper, it was everything seemed to fall in place. Right, the other one was sometimes, I thought it was, harsh.
Right,
combination.
harsh, yeah, and you couldn't tell the difference. I
Yeah.
mean, if that's what you mean, but like the contrast I found much greater. What were you gonna say, Jessica?
It was a mellow sound, more mellow sound, the second one. More, maybe like you said, it's more, it wasn't as harsh.
Uh-huh.
It was more, a smoother sound between the instruments.
Does that
They
make it less
blended better.
interesting or more interesting?
Made it more interesting.
Yeah, what else,
It's more
Rod?
blended.
I don't know who made the recordings offhand, but the first recording sounded more like the Vienna Philharmonic. The second one sounded like the Berlin Philharmonic.
What's the difference?
What's the difference?
What?
What's the difference? Why?
No, I mean, just the music, the sound of what I was hearing.
But what's, characterize it?
What?
Characterize that. What do you mean by that?
Just the Vienna.
Well,
And you said they play louder.
there's a sharpness to the Vienna that there isn't to the Berlin, relevant to one another. And the Berlin's a little bit more, how should I say, easier going.
Is he on the ear?
Its overall texture. As Vienna's a little sharper.
See, I don't think it has to do with the orchestra. I think it really, in this case, has to do with the
I don't,
conductor.
but I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. No, there's the difference. There's a difference. What are the orchestras? What are the orchestras? The first one is something
It's called the
Staatsorchester.
Staatskapelle Dresden,
Yeah.
conducted by Jeffrey Tate.
And the other one, isn't it London or something? The second, the Furtwangler? I think the Furtwangler might be London, and the other one was Dresden. But yeah, it is, the quality is different. What else?
My reaction is that, when I've listened to that, I've listened to it before, that Furtwangler is much more thoughtful in what's being presented. So it seems much more thorough, and so you're just drawn to it naturally. I remember asking Jerry Pineson some years ago, because it was, when I really started listening to classical music was about 15 years ago. That's when I shed everything else. It was a process, but then I just shed and dropped everything else. But I didn't know, you go and you buy, when you could, right? There are no more
Right.
music stores left. And so, but then over time listening, I remember John Elliott Gardner, that it seemed like he was like a bus was he had to catch a train to catch when I was listening to his stuff.
Right, a lot of his stuff
So
is
I
like
did
that,
it
yeah.
kind of on my
Yeah.
own, but it's still, then other things that you're trying to judge, and this would be the same, whether it was Jupiter, the same thing. I said, let's see what this one. Then finally, Lynn came out with the things he had to say about Furtwangler, and I was really happy. And but you just know that, or you don't know music. I can't read music. This is all new. This is all fun. But you just listen. And the way I put it, this is extremely thoughtful and extremely delivered in the most beautiful and natural way. And what Jerry said was, Sir Neville Mariner. He said, well, what he does is it's the same music but without the creativity. So that there's something creative in Furtwangler's work, and all you have to do is listen. Even on a mediocre system,
Right.
I made the decision to start listening to classical music when I heard a Mozart serenade on Sony used to put out this little cube for years called the Dream Machine. A nothing,
Right.
piece of nothing,
Right.
but it was quiet, and I can even hear it in that.
Yeah, Gwen, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I like what he said about, the first, song, or the first orchestra.
Yeah.
Sounded like they were rushing through.
Right.
Yeah, like what he said, 'cause that.
They're trying to get to the
he hit
point.
nail on the head.
You're right, and then they missed the whole point, right, trying to get there, they missed the whole thing. Yeah.
Furtwangler was so dramatic, so the contrast was so much richer. The tension at the end that builds up.
Yeah, 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 Eugene.
I think, the first orchestra started it more abruptly. He didn't give the melody or the notes full value exactly the way they should be. Whereas with Furtwangler, he came in more slowly. He gave you time to absorb the melody and the notes. He didn't come in as abruptly as the first orchestra did. And that continued throughout the piece.
You wanna hear, let's just listen to a little teeny snip of the beginning of the previous one again. And we can compare, we can hear it again. I can get rid of this, we don't have to look at this. This might be really loud now. Yeah, even the way you can stop it, even the way the orchestra comes in after he stop it, he wants it. So he goes, dee da da, dee da dee da da, and then you have to go right to the thing. Now let's hear the Furtwangler.
I have to cue it up, I don't know.
Oh. So weird. Then listen how they come in. One other thing, to just show you, which you don't hear, see, we talked about registers. And if you say that the French horn, which is the opening instrument, is like the tenor voice.
Right.
Do you remember where the tenor voice has the register shift? It was between B and C. Okay, so this is down an octave. It means that this is the first note in one register, and this is in the lower. This is in the low register. Okay, and this is in another register. And what Schubert does is he gives these accents, which I think he really means. You hear in the first recording the conductor like disregard. I mean, you wouldn't even know that there were accents on these notes. When you hear this, if you think of this as being the head voice, this being in the chest voice, and then this one up to there is the like really resonating singing voice. And again, do the first one. Sorry, you have to put the thing back in. one. You can hear clearly, he does the accent, you can hear the
Yeah.
registration, even for that stinky little thing. Anyway, so I would recommend, you can actually find, you can find some of these Furtwangler, things on YouTube. But I would really recommend people listen to it, and I would recommend actually listening to the whole symphony.
Yeah.
Cause what we heard is only the first movement, and there's 4 movements. The whole thing is close to an hour, and it's absolutely wonderful. And as the more that you get to know it, the more that you can appreciate the difference in conductors and how they approach it. And then the question to think about is if you're Furtwangler and you're presented with this, how do you know how to do it? How do you know why wouldn't you just do it like the first guy did it? And does that have to do with what's written? Does that have to do with something else? I mean, that's the question. Anyway, so those are things that we can think about. So that's all I have for today. And next week we're gonna do more solfege because Linda LaRouche says we're gonna learn solfege. So everyone here is gonna be an expert at reading music. And then you'll all have to join the chorus.
What was the name of that song?
Schubert's 9th Symphony.